Hello, everybody. I am glad you all could join us. I am very, very happy because we are here with Nicole.
Hi.
And Nicole is, oh gosh, I always forget to do that. I always accidentally leave the stream that I'm monitoring on the other window. And like as
Yeah.
soon as it goes live, it just kind of like starts buzzing in my ear.
Oh, no.
But we're here with Nicole, and she has quite a story to tell. Now, before we get into it, I do want to make a mention. If you watch my channel, I'm really not big on like trigger warnings or anything like that, because generally speaking, most of the time it's about insignificant things that don't necessarily have a whole lot to do with actual trauma. But what Nicole actually went through is very much constitutes trauma. So if this is the type of thing, abuse stories is something that might be kind of hard for you to watch. I just want you to let you know there will be some graphic photos of
Oh, you have them.
effects. Yeah, I got those. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
that show the results of violence. So just so you know, just want to be nice about it. This one time, this one time. So the purpose of this is because you're a survivor of some extreme abuse.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a long-lasting sort of physical abuse deal through the relationship. However, yeah, I was stalked and ultimately attacked at my home. So
Right.
it's a bit crazy.
But by the end of this, you came out of it not as a victim, but as a survivor who overcame it. And so that put you in a unique perspective because of our culture, our victim culture that we have these days, which is why I think your story is so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of the narrative that's happening now with, being catcalled as harassment and getting PTSD from Twitter when I actually suffer from pretty severe PTSD is a little, disgusting to me. I know that's like a pretty strong word, but it's a bit discomforting and disgusting to see, 16, 17, 18-year-old girls taught that if a man speaks to you, you're a victim. Oh my goodness,
Yeah, right.
you know.
Yeah, and that's far too common these days.
It is, and it's sad. It's sad because we're a lot stronger than we think we are.
I would absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. Um, contextually speaking, what kind of time frame were we talking about? Where do you want to start? Like what year?
Okay, so just a little backstory. So when I was 16, I started dating this boy. Well, he wasn't a boy. He was 21 when I was 16. We started a relationship. I got pregnant when I was 16, turning 17. We had a beautiful daughter together. She passed away from sudden infant death syndrome right before my 18th birthday. So this would be 2005. And
Oof.
then, so this story all happens in the 11 months after her passing. So
Okay.
things were, never hunky dory the whole relationship. He was, there were always like hints of violence, but never towards me. He'd fight his brothers all the time, and just be. There are all these red flags that you see, and you're like, oh well, that doesn't happen to me, so I'm just gonna ignore it.
Right.
So when we broke up after our daughter passed away, just grief either pulls you together or it tears you apart. And
Absolutely.
for us, it tore us apart. There was just no surviving it. There was no getting through it at that point. And so we remained friends for probably, I don't know, I want to say like 5 months after we broke up. He was definitely stalking me from the time we broke up, but it was really friendly at first. It was, I'm grieving, please help me through this, and I tried the best I could to be as supportive of it as I could. And
Sure.
then things kind of took a much darker tone very quickly, actually. So,
So
go ahead.
I'm curious. So I know that statistically speaking, the vast majority of marriages, relationships, that sort of thing that experience the loss of a child, the vast majority of them just never ever ever recover. Would you say that the collapse and then the subsequent, I guess, snapping of this guy was a direct result of it, or do you think maybe there was something behind it before?
Well, I think it's kind of both. I think that he had always kind of had a darker mental problem that was there. But really, what brought it to the forefront and really just made it come out was kind of the grief of losing our daughter.
Yeah.
That just, I don't think either of us did very well with grieving from that. You know, I kind of shut down completely emotionally, whereas he went like the opposite direction and all of the emotions were there.
Right.
You know, and I think that was really, really hard for him to deal with, and it caused this
Yeah.
collapse.
I don't think anybody ever deals with a situation like that well, honestly.
No, there's no well or proper way to deal with that. You know, it's just, you know, especially so young. I am thankful that I was so young, because I don't think that I would have made it through losing my daughter had I been even just a little bit older, maybe 5 years older. But I was 17 when she passed, so I was
Right.
kind of able to. Unfortunately, you know, I went a little off the rails, but when you're young, that's almost a little bit acceptable. So I was able to fall back on that, kind of going a bit crazy, like started doing drugs and partying and shit. But, you know, I was young
Yeah.
enough to recover from that. So,
That's good. Yeah.
oh,
That's I
absolutely.
just that those kind of situations, those kind of stories, they shake me to the core. As soon as you have a kid, like the
Oh,
very
I know.
notion of it.
I mean, and
What's that?
I'm still, I don't have any children now currently, but you know, once a mom, kind of always a mom. So
Yeah.
I hear about shit like that now, and I'm still like, oh my God, you know, it's so sad. It just, you know, you
Yeah.
can't know what it feels like until you love something that much, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So you guys managed to last just a little bit, eventually split, and then were friends for about 5 months, was it?
Yeah, roughly about 5 months. Not like friends. We'd see each other, but more just like going through grief together. So it was, we never really talked anymore about like personal, like, hey, how was your day? Shit. It was always just like, I'm really sad today. Like, can we talk about her? You know, so
Sure.
there wasn't really any sort of friendship. It was all just kind of memories of our daughter and stuff. And I think that might have also contributed to kind of the snapping, is that I wasn't quite reciprocating what he, you know, he wanted to get back together. He broke up with me, thinking that I was cheating on him because I just completely pulled away. We weren't having, you know, not to be TMI, but we weren't having sex anymore because I couldn't, you know, I just lost my kid. I don't want to even worry about having another one.
There's like an emotional connection between like physical intimacy and the act of making love to
Yeah,
somebody and having a child. So I can
yeah.
understand
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
it's gone. I couldn't even like, you know, and it makes me feel kind of guilty about it, but I like couldn't even let him touch me. You know, it was just one of the, like, I was just very emotionally detached. So I was just like, look, I don't, you know, this isn't something that I'm interested in, and I like hope you can respect that and kind of stick with me through it. But eventually it just got too much for him to take, I think. So he broke up with me one night over the phone, thinking that I was cheating on him, and actually I was out spray painting graffiti with one of my really good friends. And, you know, just kind of like live it up a little bit and just get through it. And so it was kind of interesting because the day after he broke up with me, it was instantly, you know, I knew that that's what I wanted. I did not want to be in that relationship anymore. Whereas he kind of realized, oh shit, what did I do?
Yeah.
You know, like I want to take this back. I don't want to be broken up, and I don't want to not be in a relationship with you. And I was just like, sorry, guy. You know, you kind of pulled the trigger on that, and that's the way it is. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just it was a really interesting time to see somebody you know so well, or that you thought you knew so well, kind of deteriorate so fast.
Right. And I imagine like there's also kind of that problem when you go through a deep emotional pain with somebody. I mean, I obviously I can't compare any of my experiences
It's
to
really,
this. I had some.
it's not a competition though. You know,
No, for
grief is
sure, for
grief is
sure.
grief. You know, no matter whether you've had the same experience I have, if you've felt any sort of loss, then you
Oh
can
yeah.
at least understand what it is. You know.
Right. And when one person is dealing with it internally versus the other person is doing it externally, compartmentalizing and then like somebody else requiring your help to get through a
It's
trauma.
it's just, it's a huge, it makes you unfortunately it makes you disconnect from that person even more. You
Hmm.
know, for me at least, it made me completely uninterested. You know, I was just like, look, like I'm going through my own shit with this, and I want to be internalized. I don't want to talk about it all
Right.
day every day. I kind of want to at this point, pretend it didn't happen and try to like survive.
Sure.
Whereas I don't want to kind of rehash it every day, and so it makes you disinterested.
So, so you had like sporadic contact, here and there, that sort of thing, and he was trying to reach out and get something that you couldn't provide. What was the first sign that things were starting to turn dark?
So he had started sending me letters. Like I don't know how he even was able to do this. Every single day in my mailbox, I like so when I got stabbed, I turned over as evidence, like, like a shopping bag, a Walmart bag,
Yeah.
just like full of letters, like 10-page, 20-page, 30-page letters. Where
Ooh.
he said he was like writing a book and stuff. And I would read them, I'm not going to be an asshole.
Sure.
And, towards the end, they started kind of getting this darker. You could tell he was kind of having a psychological break where he was, talking about things that had never happened. He really started, he like kind of fell back on religion in a bad way, like quoting Bible verses to me about like murder and like rape and shit.
Oh
And I'm
no.
very confused all of a sudden. And then I started getting messages on my home. I lived with my mother when all this was happening. And on our voicemail, on our home voicemail, and it's 2005 before everybody had cell phones. So on our landline, we would get messages at like 2 o'clock in the morning about like just these Bible verses about rape and murder, and it was scary and a little disgusting, and it was a bit awful, you know.
That's intense. When they start quoting Bible verses, something's wrong. Oh
Yeah,
man.
and so
Jesus.
he, kind of leading up to this, uh, probably about a month and a half, I think. My mom would know better, but about a month and a half, maybe 2 months before he stabbed me, he showed up at my house with like a dozen or 2 dozen long stem roses, peach roses, which were, till this night, my favorite flower. And we stood next to each other in my dark backyard, and he like pulled out a box cutter and started slicing his wrist in front of me. And
Holy
so I
shit.
had to like call the ambulance and all the shit, right? And so from that instant, I'm thinking, well, he was this close to me, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
And so I'm thinking he's not going to do anything bad to hurt me, So I didn't, at that point, I should have completely no contacted. I should have been like, block all numbers, change my phone number, whatever. But I
Mm.
didn't because I thought like he was right there next to me with a knife. If he was going to hurt me, he would have done it then. Nobody was in my yard. Nobody would have known about it. It would, he could have killed me and walked on, and
Right.
nobody
This
would have found
is
me for a day.
You were
It
thinking
was like
he
2
was
months.
more likely to hurt himself than to hurt you at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and he was like a Golden Gloves boxer for like just locally, but here in New Mexico for a while.
Mm.
And he like did it to his right arm, his power arm. So that was concerning in and of itself. It's concerning that he cut himself, but it's also concerning that he like damaged a source of his power, really.
Right.
So severely. Like it was bad. They were deep. I had to call an ambulance. He was taken to the hospital. It wasn't something you could just stitch up with band-aids.
And so when he came over and he did this, like, did he just come over? I didn't quite catch it. Did he not? He come over like completely unannounced, like out of the blue.
Just showed up at my house. Showed up at my house. Like
Fucking hell.
just random. Didn't call me and say, hey, we need to talk, anything like that. Just all of a sudden he was there, and I was like, happened to be willing to talk. I told my mom to stay inside, with her husband and her friend. They were in the house. I was just like, look, like, she was like, honey, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to go and talk to him right now. Like, because this is after the point where he's sending those voicemails, like the Bible quotes and things like that.
Yeah.
So, she knew how scared I was, and she's like, you don't have to do this. And I was like, no, I mean, he's here, I'm not going to be, we had this connection and we had this kid together. Like, I'm not going to be that cruel. And so I went out and talked to him, and we were having actually like what I thought was a pretty good conversation about it. Not going to get back together, like, but I wasn't mean about it. I wasn't rude about it. I was just like, I'm not at a place where I can be with you. And
Sure.
all of a sudden, it happens just very quick too, in the blink of an eye. Like, one thing we're talking very calmly, and the next he's slicing his arm up. It was a bit jarring, you know, for sure.
Did he ever have a history of maybe like some crazy drugs? Do you think maybe he had been abusing them at the time?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I had heard, and so this is all unsubstantiated. I can't confirm, but I had heard that he got caught behind one of the bars in downtown Santa Fe smoking a crack pipe.
Oh,
Yeah, in between us breaking up and this point. So I had heard about that through some friends because we had been kind of, you know, I was very young, but he was very into the nightlife. He, DJ'd for a while and played some shows and things like that. So we knew a lot of people in the nightlife. And so these rumors had gotten back to me. So I do believe that, yeah, he was using drugs.
okay.
You know, and not just like smoking pot, you know.
So he slices himself up. Obviously they come, they take him away, take him to the hospital, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what was like the immediate fallout from that?
Well, actually, he stayed, I believe he went under a 24-hour cycle, where they keep you for 24 hours, and he was able to get out after 24 hours. And then for like 3 or 4 weeks, right up, so I guess so it was closer to a month and a half before he stabbed me. Because, in the 3 weeks following, there was no contact.
Okay.
And I think that thinking back now, when I look back at it, that should have maybe pinged a red flag in my head. That there was no contact, because he had been contacting me almost every day up until that point.
Right.
And
Anything could have been happening, while he's like completely silent after he just
yeah,
had like a suicide attempt.
yeah, and so I didn't hear anything about him. I didn't hear anything from him. And then, so he stabbed me on November 10th, 2006. Yes, 2006. So before Halloween, about a week before Halloween, was the next time I talked to him from that incident.
Okay.
And then I got a call from him. So I had 2 best friends. I have 2 best friends in the whole fucking world. They're dudes. They're my best friends ever. And they have been, even now, they're still very, very close to me. When we had our daughter, he worked a lot. So my 2 best friends would end up babysitting our daughter almost every day because I had to work too. And so I get this call from him about a week before Halloween. And I answer it, and I put it on speakerphone because my 2 friends were living in Hawaii. They had just gotten back maybe like 4 days before this. And I put it on speakerphone because I have one of them and my brother in the car. And he's like, you have 10 days to bring these 2 dudes to me. Trying to tell me that they molested my daughter when the medical examiner is like, on an infant, right? My daughter was 8.5 months old when she died. On an infant, when there's been any sort of sexual abuse at all, you can tell. And the medical examiners were like, that never happened. That absolutely never happened. Your daughter never went through anything like that, Right. He's just like trying to tell me, like, you have 10 days to bring me these guys or I will chop your fucking head off. He's like,
whoa.
No, listen, I swear on your grave that I will chop your fucking head off. Those were his exact words. So I hung up and I called the cops right away.
Holy shit.
Right. And I got a restraining order. But in New Mexico, it's kind of the land of mañana. Do it tomorrow, do it tomorrow. So even the court systems are very much like that. So I was given the wrong court date to renew my restraining order. Just through like a clerical error or them being shitty at their job. So my temporary restraining order got dropped.
Fuck.
So, and then I got stabbed, like pretty much almost within a week of that restraining order getting dropped. But on Halloween, so that was about a week before Halloween. I didn't hear anything since,
Mm-hmm.
And on Halloween, we're at my mom's house. It's just me and my best friend, like in the whole world. This guy's been my rock for 15 years. We were standing outside, and it was like 10 in the morning, but I was already dressed up. I think I was like a pirate wench or something for that year. So I was wearing like boots and I looked like a slut. Like I really did. And that's not a problem. That was my costume. But my best friend, like he puts his hand on me and he's like, I think you need to go in the house. Why, dude? And he's like, that same car just circled this block 3 times. And 2 minutes later, this fucker comes jumping over the fence into my mom's yard and just running at us, right? And my best friend, had never been in a fist fight before in his life, right? Beat the shit out of this guy. Like, I don't know if it was adrenaline or whatever, but like, before I ran in, the only thing I see is homie that stabbed me running up, like just running. And my best friend lifts his leg up, and he's a tall fucking guy. He's like 6'4". He just like kicks out this like Sparta kick, like you know, the 300 this is Sparta kick.
Sure.
Right to his solar plexus, and that gave me enough time to get into the house. And so I called the cop, and they fought, and then he ran away. So the cops just were like, you know, we'll put it in your file. There's not really much we can do. We'll look for him, but you know, he's not here anymore. And that was Halloween. So, you know, and from that point on, I was never allowed to be alone at all.
Okay.
Like, either my mother was with me, but generally always, I've always been the only girl in a group of guys. So generally always one of them was with me from this point forward.
Okay. So. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's nuts. And so here, this is where things get a little weird, right? Just kind of before he stabbed me, he's like trying to tell the police that I like paid for somebody to. There was like this local home bum with HIV, right? And he's like trying to tell the police that I like stole some of his blood and like injected him with it, and we like held him down and like raped him and all this awful. He's like telling the police this, and they don't believe him, obviously, because they're like, no, she's been on record filing a restraining order against you. She's called the police on you. She has all these letters. Like, we're not gonna believe you, dude. Sorry. Like, try again.
Right.
Try
I
again.
imagine he was probably talking like a crazy person at the time too.
Yeah,
I'd imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, my mom and her husband were on their honeymoon in Jamaica when kind of all this came out, with him saying that, you know, we were like raping him and shit. And he actually tried to say that they were involved even though they were in Jamaica. You know, so he sounds just like an absolute nut job at this point. And the cops aren't taking him seriously, but nobody can find him. Nobody can find him to arrest him for assault for Halloween, to hold him accountable for that, you know? So he's just two sheets to the wind. Nobody knows where the fuck this guy is. And that's even more scary, because it's just like, you know, I carried a Kubaton with me to my car at this point, because the way our house was set up, nobody ever used the front door. Everybody always used the back, and that's through our gated yard. And so I'd have to walk down that pathway inside the yard to my car, and the alleyway back there has no street lights. So once it's dark, it's dark. The only light is from my back porch, you know? And so I carry like a baton to my car, make sure I had like mace out to even get to my car, just to make myself feel more comfortable. You know, and of course, the night I got stabbed, I didn't have any of that shit in my hand, so.
It's always the worst case scenario, isn't it?
Sorry, I like smoke a lot when I talk about this. Like, I don't get it keeps me calm.
if I had had the time to, I probably would have dragged my computer outside so I could be smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always it is always though like the worst case scenario though when something like that happens, you know, like, oh crap, I totally forgot, you know, my knife inside, or my, you know, whatever personal protection item you have at home, and that's the night that you needed it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he stabbed me at my home in front of my mother. Yeah, like my mother was there, and a really close friend of mine was there who also got cut as well. So it's pretty nuts. Yeah, I feel so bad for my mom that she had to see that, you know, like, I kind of cared a little bit more about other people than I care about myself, which is, I'm learning to kind of get over that and, you know, put myself first until I
used to be the same way too, yeah.
So, you know, like, even in the aftermath of it, I'm just like worried about my mom. Like, is she cool? Like, is she okay? You know, but to this day, I feel so shitty that she had to see that, you know?
No, I can imagine. So, was there any contact at all, like either messages or anything between him and you from Halloween till the night?
Nothing. Okay. Nothing at all. And so kind of, this is the part where I just like go kind of streamline into it. It's all like one big event, and
Have at
just
it.
from beginning
Have
to
at it.
end. Okay, so the night he stabbed me, my mom had breast cancer. And it's just this year of my life was the most fucked up year of my life ever. Not just from getting stabbed, just everything else too. Because, like you said, it's always the worst case scenario. So my mom had her last chemotherapy appointment that night, and she's in remission now, perfectly fine, doing great. So I was supposed to go to work at the local movie theater at 6 p.m. She called me and said she was running a little late from her chemo and asked if I could stay back and just chat with her and stuff. She was not feeling particularly good after her chemo appointment, and she just wanted to see me. And that was fine, totally. So I stayed back a little bit, and my dog, we had this part of our yard that was fenced off from the rest. That's where we kept our garbage and stuff. And my dog had been going over there all day. We had this little miniature schnauzer. And she'd been going over there all day, from 9 o'clock in the morning, going over there and just being all weird, not barking like there was an intruder, but sniffing the fence, there's something in there that I want. But not letting us know, hey, there's somebody fucking here. So I had some friends over earlier in the day, and they had left to go to a concert. My two best friends, the ones that he was bring me these guys, whatever. Those two guys and the dude that was with me when I got stabbed, the three of them were there. So they leave to go to a concert. It's just me and my other friend that got stabbed with me. And my mom got back, and we hung out for maybe 30 minutes. And then we go to leave, and it's me out front, and my friend behind me, and then my mom behind us. And we're walking down to the car, and I fucking looked over there. I shit you not. I looked over where he came from, and I didn't see anything. So I kept walking. And then I hear my mom, scream. And all of a sudden, there's, something around my neck from behind. So I just went like this. And, if you can see it, my little scar is right here, and then my big scar is right here. So if you look, it's on my throat when I do this. So I just turtled myself the best that I could. I thought he was strangling me. I didn't feel what happened. So I pretended to pass out. I let my whole body go limp in his arms, just fell back against him, and he let me go, thankfully. He must have thought I passed out or whatever. So I booked it to my garage. My mom books it into the house. My friend was right behind me, right? He wouldn't mind me saying his name. My friend Jeremy was right behind me. And the dude turned around and slashed him just right on the face. He's got this little tiny scar from the tip of his nose to the top of his lip, right? And he tried to get into the house. So as my mother was closing and locking the door, this guy beat against the door, which got it stuck. It got stuck shut. So she couldn't open it, he couldn't open it, nobody could open it. So I run to the garage, I'm in the garage, and my friend Jeremy was out there fighting with him. And thankfully Jeremy had a pocket knife with him, so he was able to kind of give as good as he got in that situation. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I looked out of the garage and I just see my friend Jeremy huddled over and bleeding. So I'm on the phone with 911, not knowing my mom is on the phone with 911 at the same time. This all happened so fast. So I'm telling them my friend's been stabbed. My friend's been stabbed. I didn't even tell them that I had been cut. I didn't know. I was so full of adrenaline. I can remember it to this day, just how angry I was and just pumped. Oh, what happened?
Yeah.
So I was telling them that my friend had been hurt, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then my friend Jeremy comes into the garage with me, and he's just like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "What the fuck do you mean? I'm amped, dude." And he's like, "No, are you?" And I just touched, so gross. I just touched my chest, and I felt my hand go into my body. And that's how I found out that I had been stabbed. And so I was wearing a white wife beater and a white Victoria's Secrets bra. And I looked down finally, and it's just red. Just the whole thing is red. I'm losing so much blood. And that's when I start that's when I'm just shit. Fuck, dude, what's gonna happen here? And thankfully, he ran away. So So he booked it as soon as this altercation with Jeremy had ended. Kind of realizing, well, I'm not going to murder anybody here today. I might as well bounce, you know? So the door had been stuck shut, but my mom had this sliding glass door into her bedroom and into this house. So she let us in. That's how we got into my home. And she had this big, giant mirror, right? And so the first thing I see of myself is in this mirror. And I saw kind of what you saw in those photos, but before they had been cleaned. And I knew right then, like, you're gonna fucking die, girl. Like, make sure everybody else is cool, and then, like, get in the ambulance. Don't die in front of your mother.
Right.
Like, that's the
absolutely.
last thing she needs in this world, is to see this happen and then to watch you die from it. So I'm just trying to stay, like, really amped. I'm just trying really, really hard to, like, make sure that I don't, you know, pass out, that I don't lose consciousness, that nothing happens. So I'm just, like, pacing around the house screaming at 911. They ended up getting off the phone with me, but my mom was a bit more freaked out at the time than I was. You know, she had just watched this happen. I'm her youngest, you know, so I'm her baby. And
Right. Yeah.
she watched this happen to me. So she's, like, intelligible talking to 911. They're like, okay, maybe you should just give the phone to her again. So I take the phone, and then, you know, pretty quickly the cops got there and the ambulance got there. There was a point where my mom was kind of, you know, she wanted to protect us. So she got her gun and was, like, looking for this fucker. And that's when the cops rolled up, of course, because, you know, right when my mom has her gun. So
Worst case scenario.
The first sign of help I see is, you know, lay on your face on the ground. You know, and so I take off my shirt and I, like, stuff it in my wound and I lay down on the ground. Like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I don't want to get shot. And then they tell my mom to lay on the ground. And this is something we all still joke about, like, to this day. I was like, my mother is not laying on that fucking ground. She has cancer. Fuck you. That's what I told the cop. Like, fuck you. She is not laying on the ground. And so he let us kind of all sit up, and they searched the house and the premises, and he was gone. And then we get in the ambulance, and they took really good care of my mom, like all the cops there. They made sure she was good, and, you know, they let her leave with all of her cancer drugs and, you know, everything she needed to be okay.
That's good.
And so once we got in the ambulance and the doors closed, and I was like, it's okay. Like, you can die now. Like, you didn't... You know, and I was telling the ambulance, I was like, just the EMT, I was like, you know, take care of my friend. Like, he's going to be all right. Like, I'm not sure that I'm going to be all right. Like, take care of him. Make sure he's good. Like, you don't have to worry about me. Like, I'm okay with it. And they were like, look, you're not going to die. Like, they had to convince me. They had to seriously convince me that I was not going to die. And
it's kind of interesting, like, getting into that type of shock and like your focus purely being on, you know, like, your family, your friend. Yeah. How many times did he just manage to get away with just the face cut, or
he got just cut in the face, and then right on the back of his arm he had like a 2 or 3 inch slice. So he was lucky. Like, we're all so very fortunate, but he was really lucky that he was able to hold his own.
What type of knife was this guy using too? I'm curious.
That's where it gets a little fucked up. He was using a box cutter. He sliced us with a razor. So, I mean, in terms of, like, surgery and, like, getting stitched back together, it made it okay. But I think that's why I didn't feel it, was because it was just so sharp. He didn't use, like, one of the regular, like, Home Depot box cutters. He used what's called a styrofoam cutter. Those are the box cutters with the extendable blade. So there's not the point guard where the razor only sticks out that much. You know, it's a fucking razor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think about now. So I'm gonna share the pictures.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it this way. Put the camera on me.
I'm so proud of those pictures, man.
What's that?
I'm so proud of those pictures. Like, I'm just proud to live through all of it.
Let's see. Share. Whoa, infinity. Okay. Here we go. Is that showing up okay for you?
Yeah, I can see that just fine.
Okay. So here's
these are, just real quick, these are the crime scene photos. So these were taken with, like, the crime scene investigator's camera.
And so the one that we see right here, that's a smaller slice.
Yeah, that's this one right here for everybody watching. Kind of the small one on my clavicle.
Switch to you. Show it again.
Just this one here.
That one right there. Okay. And then we'll trying to switch this around is goofy.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and so there's again the smaller one, and that's about a 3-inch cut.
Yep.
And then this next one, this is the really gnarly one, guys.
Yeah, it's gross.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. That's that's over 6 inches long.
Yeah, so it actually wraps what you can't kind of see. It looks like a Nike swoosh. It wraps around my arm. Oof. So it's like all the way about halfway through my right arm.
Here, I'll switch back to you so we can see like how it's healed. All right, there we go. We're back.
So this is that big one, and it goes all the way to right here. I don't know if you can kind of see the end, but it's right above my finger.
Yeah. That is absolutely wild.
And
that is absolutely insane.
Thankfully, I was a bit heavier. Actually, this is kind of a funny. None of this is funny. That's not what I mean when I say it. But just kind of an interesting thing. I was heavier. I had a lot more body fat, especially up here, and I still had, I was less than 8, or I was just 18, turning 19, so I still had some baby fat on my face. And from me going like this, the reason that there's a break in my scars and the reason it didn't hit my jugular or my carotid artery is because of the fat on my face. So I had a little tiny cat scratch scar from probably like the end of this one to like halfway through my chin, where it like slid into my chin and then went back out onto my throat.
That is an extremely fortunate circumstance.
Yeah. So I like I said, I think in a tweet, like I'm half lucky and I'm half smart, because I'm half lucky that I survived it all, but the smart thing to do, and you never realize. You can sit back and talk shit all day about your survival instinct and all this stuff, but you never know if you have it until you need to have it. Yeah. And my first instinct, without even thinking, like, I didn't think about turtling myself up. I didn't think about protecting my neck. That was just the first thing my body did was, fuck.
Yeah.
So I just clenched up really tight, my neck down as far into my chest as I could. And I'm really fortunate that I did that, because you can see that it's on my chest and not across my throat where this one
right.
is.
Yeah. And turning and turning it into dead weight, when somebody has grabbed you from behind is also a really good maneuver, especially.
That's the only thing I could think of to get him to let me go.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was being stabbed or strangled or what. Like, if I hadn't done that, who's to say that he wouldn't have started, stabbing me? Like, actually, like, not just slicing, but stabbing. So I just...
like, it's puncturing,
Like, just so limp. Like, I let all of my body weight go. All of it.
Even the strongest of people have a hard time, even with smaller people, holding up just dead weight. Dead weight just... goes right through.
I mean, so I'm 135 now, and I was probably, I want to say I was probably like 171 when this happened. I was a fair amount bigger. I grew up a chubby kid. It's not till recently that I kind of slimmed down and stuff. So I wasn't the lightest of people anyways to begin with, and then to just dead weight, complete dead weight. So.
Well, I'm very glad that you did.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you lose any consciousness before you got to the hospital?
No, I didn't. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like I said, I went into total shock. Like, I don't say this to be like a hard ass. Like, I kind of wish I would have cried. Like, I didn't cry at all. I was angry. I was so pissed. Like, I remember I wouldn't let anybody into my hospital room because you saw the pictures. It's fucking gross. Like, it looks gross.
You can see the fat layers, like subcutaneous tissue
into my body. It's pretty nasty. And so I let one of my friends with the strongest stomach ever, because of course everybody heard about it instantly. I don't fucking know how, but all of a sudden, like, I have friends at the hospital.
Hmm.
And I was only there for 8 hours tops, and that's including a 6-hour surgery. So it's like 2
That's
hours before I went into surgery, or about an hour before I went into surgery, and then the required hour after surgery. And then I checked myself out against doctor's orders. I was just, fuck no, I don't want to be here. You don't have anybody guarding my door. So I had let one of my friends in, and it turned their stomach. And I have never seen this guy puke for anything. Like, we've seen some shit that would make you throw up. And he walked in and saw me, and it turned, like, you could see him, like, gag. And so my brother wanted to come in the room, and I was just like, I can't let you see me like this.
yeah.
So he ended up calling my father, who called my cell phone, and I still had my cell phone. So I'm talking to my dad in the hospital bed, and I'm like, I'm just, like, excuse the language, but I'm just like, this fucking faggot, blah, 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 just screaming. And
Yeah.
so they had stopped my bleeding at this point, and my friend that was in the room with me, he was like, you need to calm down. And I was like, I will not calm down. Fuck you. Like, no. And he
Yeah.
was like, no, like, look at what you're doing. And I had caused myself to bleed all over again, getting so angry.
Oh shit.
So I kind of made their work a little harder for them. I had nurses coming in and telling me to shut up because I was, like, disturbing everybody else. Because I was pissed. I was screaming, like, obscenities, just a string of obscenities in a hospital emergency room. So they came and they closed my door, and they were like, look, can you just try? I know you're upset, but try to keep it down a little.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it too, what's kind of interesting is stabbing is such an immense violation in regards to like being attacked,
Oh, yeah.
I've been stabbed a couple of times myself, never even close to as severe as you got cut open like that, but there's just something perversely disgusting about somebody, and it's like it's a direct from their hand to a tool to your body is
It's so
just so.
intimate.
It is. It's incredibly intimate, incredibly intimate. And I know people who've been shot and they would rather be shot than stabbed
I've had
simply
people tell me
because,
that same thing.
yeah, absolutely. It's, it squicks me out too,
The thing that kind of, like, to this day, I'm actually like, all right, so I'm still pretty angry about the whole deal. And, like, I have PTSD from it, of course. But one of the things that kind of pisses me off the most about that whole thing is he have the balls to look me in the eye while he tried to take my life. He did it from behind in the dark like a coward. At the time, I was a 5'1" female. I'm 5'3" now. Woohoo. But he didn't have the courage to look at me in the face while he was trying to take my life from me.
and he's a boxer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's a big fucking dude. Like, he was 6'3". He weighed 185 pounds. He was also 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
5 years older than me, 1980. Yeah. And just to not have the courage to look at me in the face. Like, we had shared so much. Our relationship was 3 years long before we lost our daughter. So we had shared a lot together, and to share that grief and to share that happiness at the same time, to not look me in the face, this woman that you say you love, 5 months ago, you're trying to win me back, and you can't even look me in the eyes while you're trying to take my life from me.
That's so fucked up. That's so
Isn't
fucked
it?
up.
Like, it bugs me, this kind of makes me feel, I don't know how I feel about this, but, like, I'm more at peace. My daughter died from sudden infant death syndrome. She died in her sleep, knowing that she was the most loved little creature in the whole world. She had never
Sure.
experienced heartache or even yelling. Like, I would get pissed if you yelled in front of my kid. Like, that's just not. So she had this very happy life, and she passed away in her sleep. I am very at peace with that. There was nothing I could have done, and I don't harbor any guilt from it. I don't know how I feel about being more angry about this than about losing her, but I am. One way or the other, regardless of how it makes me feel, I'm much more angry to this day about what he did to me versus losing her.
And it's when you have something like that happen, who can you really be mad at? The losing a child from SIDS, but this is a direct action of a giant piece of shit. So I think it makes sense. I honestly think it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Mom for feeling worse about it, But I don't feel that way these days. I'm more ambivalent about it now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have to. You have to at some point find some way to make peace with it. So, okay, so you're there for about 8 hours. You get discharged. How long did it take them to find him?
About 24 to 36 hours. So I had, just real quick, because I'm really proud of this too, I had 167 stitches in this one.
Oh, nice.
And they were like the internal disposable stitches, so it took about 12 months for them to completely dissolve. I don't know how many stitches I had in this one, but less than 100.
Yeah.
So about 200 stitches in my body from it, and I'm really, you know, proud of that. For
Oh,
some
that's cool.
reason.
The patchwork person.
Yeah, you know. So they advised me to stay in the hospital, but they had nobody there. Hey, babe. My hubby just got home. Um, they had nobody guarding my door. They had nobody with me. The only cops there were like the crime scene investigators. I felt so very unsafe. This was the hospital I had my daughter in. This was the hospital that we went to when my daughter died. Because she died in our, you know, in our house, in a separate house. So we were taken there. So if they didn't know, the nurses didn't know that he was the one that stabbed me like the police did, they would have easily let him into my room if
Right.
he had decided to show up.
Right.
You know, they knew who we were. So I felt incredibly unsafe. One of my mom's friends was gracious enough she lives kind of in this like area like outside of Santa Fe, like this really like kind of hoity-toity well-to-do area. So she had this guest house. And she let us use it as a safe house until he got caught, which was great. So we were there for about, I think it was closer to 36 hours before they caught him. His family actually turned him in. They heard about what he did. He went to hide, you know, with some family members and, you know, with his mom. And I believe his mom was actually the one that called and turned him in.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we did actually, real quick, before we keep going. Somebody from the chat was asking if you suffered any. Oh, I know the answer, but if you suffered any long-term neurological damage to like your ability to use your arm.
Not to use my arm. I do have like kind of nerve damage, but it's a little bit weird. So when I put pressure on this part of my arm, my whole side of my hand falls asleep. Just this part, just these two fingers and this part of my hand. And then like sometimes when it gets really cold, my hand will get stuck, like shut. And I like have to like force it to open itself. And then if I drive for a really long period of time, my face starts to get like pins and needles, like it's falling asleep.
Wow.
So it's been like this really strange nerve damage. I have full movement. I can't lift. I'm not technically supposed to lift anything heavier than 25 pounds. I work as a chef, so 50-pound flour bags. Of course, I'm going to pick those up. But
yeah.
but I'm not supposed to. And in my day-to-day life outside of work, I try really hard to be cautious of my weight restrictions.
Sure. Okay.
But it's just this really weird. It's really weird nerve damage. It's I have full mobility and I'm very dexterous and stuff. But as I get older, I'm sure my dexterity will go away in my right hand. Because I kind of feel it even now. I'm 28. This was 8 years ago or 10 years ago. I'm 28 now, and I'm already kind of like, especially when it's cold, I'm already starting to lose just a little bit of the dexterity I had in my right hand before.
Okay. Okay. So they catch him.
Yeah. If all of this pissed you off, like hearing how long he got in prison will piss everybody off even more.
Oh God, lay it on us. Lay it on us.
So he got caught, and this is a pretty short trial. He took a plea deal. So I don't know exactly what the charges are. I don't care to know. I was there for all of it. It's just something I just don't give a fuck about. Like, I don't care what they ended up charging him with. I assume it was attempted murder and assault for the. They lumped in the assault on Halloween with the charges, and they got him with assault for a deadly weapon on my friend that got stabbed with me. So there's assault and assault with deadly weapon, and then he got attempted murder. In the state of New Mexico, he got 6 to 12 years of prison with possibility of parole after 6. But in the state of New Mexico, if you are a model prisoner for your whole sentence, you get released. There's so I guess how I found out about this, I started dating my fiance now. We've been together kind of since 2012. He's the first person I've dated since all of this happened. And we had been together for about 3 months, and the parole hearing came up. So here I am, getting together like a statement, like, I need more time. Like, my mother still lives in this house. My cell phone number is still the same. You know, I had already graduated from college, like gone off to a 4-year college, come back having graduated. But really life kind of here was still the same. And I was prepared to tell them, like, look, I need more time before he's let out. And come to find out that the parole hearing where I thought that I would be allowed to ask was actually a conditions of release hearing, because he had been that model prisoner. So they were releasing him at the 6 years that he got. So he was in prison for 6 years for attempting to take my life and another person's life.
What the fuck? Oh
yeah.
My God.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty, dude. Like, he's out and about in this state, probably in the same town that I'm in now, and fuck knows where he is or what he's doing. He's, you know, that was in 2012. He was on parole for 2 years with ankle monitoring, but after that, they don't monitor you.
Right.
They don't, you know, there's nothing I can do about it.
You know? So did he ever try and contact you while he was in prison or afterwards?
Well, he wasn't allowed to. That was always part of the thing. Like, my number was blocked from the prison. So even if I had like a homie that went to the same jail he was in, they could not call me. Okay. That jail was not allowed to make outcoming calls to my phone number. And yeah, there's no letter, like no email contact, nothing. He hasn't tried. At the parole hearing, he didn't apologize to me directly, which also kind of pisses me off. He was like, I'm really sorry to the victims. But he wasn't like, Nicole, I'm sorry that I tried to take your life. You know what I mean?
Did he look at you?
What?
Did he look at you at the parole hearing?
Well, it was done on like a computer monitor. Okay. So like he was at a jail kind of far away at that point, and so they did it over like the internet. And I wasn't even allowed to talk to him. He wasn't allowed to talk to me. I was sitting at the table in front of him, and my mom and my boyfriend and my now fiance were in the back of the room, but I made sure that he couldn't see my fiance. I don't want him to know who he is. You know, that just is not something I need him to know. So it was just me and my representative, and him and his, we were not allowed to speak directly to each other. So our representatives had to talk through each other. And so really, like, all I got to say was, I just want to be left alone. Like, what other damage can you do to me? Like, just leave me the fuck alone. Don't think about me. Don't ever try to contact me. Don't ever come back into my life, you know? So. Yeah.
So after this incredibly wild ordeal, what was it like, you know, after you have to go to deal with this attack, you know, what followed you from this? You know, what's the types of things that that haunted you? Did you have trouble sleeping? Is there things that like just brought it back?
I mean, it's been 10 years and I still have nightmares. When it all first happened, I would have these really vivid, like incredibly vivid nightmares where, you know, he's chasing me through the house and I can't get out and stuff. And like, you know, like this is a bit graphic, but like, you know how when you have like those falling dreams or when somebody kills you in your sleep, like in your dream, you're supposed to wake up. Yeah. Like I would have these dreams and he'd shoot me in the head and I'd like, I wouldn't wake up. I'd just be like laying on the ground, like looking at the damage done to my body from that dream. And, you know, I still have those from time to time. It's definitely gotten better. I have incredibly severe post-traumatic stress disorder, even to this day. It's something that I haven't quite gotten a handle on yet. I've only seen a counselor for about 3 months, and it didn't quite go the way I wanted, and I didn't quite get what I was hoping for from it. So I haven't really, like, sought that out again, and I probably should and like asked me to, you know, at least see a counselor for a little bit of time before we go to have children again, because it's something that still makes me incredibly nervous, and it manifests itself in weird ways, and you can never really foresee how it's going to manifest itself.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, counseling ended because we moved towns, not really because I chose to, but it just, I didn't get what I wanted from it. That's my, here, say hi. That's my fiance.
Hello.
Howdy.
Yeah, Josh.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So it's something that I like kind of deal with all the time. Like I have my therapy dog. You guys have seen him cross by a couple times. He's like 100 pounds of solid muscle because I can't feel safe outside by myself at night.
Sure.
I have a really hard time even being like in my front yard smoking by myself.
Right.
In the dark. I'm more afraid now of the dark than I was when I was 8. Kind of one of the lasting things is just the fear. Like I know it's been years. I know he's not coming back, but I can't shake the fear of like footsteps behind me being, you know.
Him. You know, and I imagine the nature of the attack. You know, him like coming out of the darkness, just out of the blue. You don't even get a chance to see it. That psychologically has to do a fucking number on somebody for sure.
It does. And like you know, like some people think they're cute and they'll like come up behind you and scare you and stuff.
Oh,
here
yeah.
I have things. Scare you. I can't have that happen. Not because I like turn around and will hit you, but because it reduces me to just this mess. It like I'm a very strong woman. Like I rarely cry. It's not something that I like to do. And hold on one second.
No worries.
Get your dad. He's crazy. I can't handle that. So I was actually working here in Albuquerque just when we first moved here. So less than a year ago. It's 9 years since I got stabbed. One of my managers had forgotten, because I tell people this. I'm very open about it. Don't fucking scare me from behind. It's not cute. It's not funny. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It reduces me to a point of like embarrassing mess. Like it embarrasses me how I react to it. He forgot that and like scared me from behind. And so I'm in the kitchen of this restaurant. I was a server at the time. And before I even knew, I was like in tears, just sobbing. And it took me like 5 minutes to calm down enough to even tell him what he had done wrong. Like I couldn't even speak. So that's what like the main lasting things, because that's something everybody does to each other. Is like, oh, we're friends. Like, let me kind of spook you from behind. It's like, you can't do that to me. Please don't ever do that to me.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting too, because we kind of get programmed by the things that we experience, and the more traumatic, the more immediate and extreme the reaction can be. I dated a woman for a while who was extremely physically abusive to me. You know, like fist fight, you know, like almost made me go blind in one eye from, you know, kicking the shit out of my face. And, you know, I had years go by and I have another girlfriend and I tell her, I'm like, whatever you do, don't you ever play fight with me. Just don't do it. It's not cool. And, you know, I've never shied away from a fight, to do bouncing, all that sort of thing. She gets drunk one night, a little bit too much wine, and she tackles me. And I didn't even realize what I was doing. And I'm like, gone. I'm gone. I'm like running. And then, hell no. And I couldn't handle it. And that immediate knee-jerk thing, you know, like I wouldn't say I have PTSD because my reaction is nowhere near severe as yours.
But I mean, it doesn't matter how severe it is; it still can be part of it. You know, it doesn't have to be as bad as mine to be considered that. You know.
Well, I think I would make the distinction. Having a post-traumatic stress disorder requires a very specific amount of trauma, like a very severe amount of trauma. I wouldn't say mine was a lot of trauma. It was more like just a hammered in perpetual thing. Like I can kind of like play fight now, but you know, it's just a degree of severity, you know.
Yeah.
And there are people who just, it could be even something more minor than that, and it just like clicks with you. And sometimes you can deal with it. And I think PTSD is like the ending point where you can't deal with it. You know, it shuts you down.
I agree with that completely. It shuts me down. Like there's no rational thought. There's just that flight or fight again, you know?
Yeah. So this gets us to, you know, one of the main points of why you wanted to share your story. Why your story is so we live in a culture today, you know, where people will equate something that you went through with the most mundane and ridiculous. Yeah, catcalling causes PTSD.
It disgusts me. So I was reading, I wasn't reading, so I was watching a Sargon video. And that woman, I can't remember her name, was tweeting about how she was contacting like military members, commanding officers that were making fun of her for having PTSD from internet, from people talking to her on Twitter. And it's, I mean, that was actually, that for me was the point where I was like, I started a Twitter. I was just like, no, this is not okay. Like how, like, it's almost like, I don't dare to say that I co-opt PTSD. It's not just me. There are millions of fucking people in this world. There are soldiers that can't handle 4th of July because they've watched their troop members get blown up by IEDs. You know, there are people that have gone through so much worse than me that have so much more severe PTSD than I do. And that woman and people like her are trying to co-opt this very serious mental disorder and say it's just a joke. It's like when you hear that girl that's like, oh, I'm super OCD because my socks have to match. It's that, it's kind of making light of something that you should never feel like it's okay for you to make light of.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. There's it's just the craziest fetishization people have of trauma. They really do. You know, they could see something that, you know, somebody survived, somebody goes through, and they see the response that they get, you know. But when somebody shares a story, you know, a lot of times the reaction to a really traumatic story is, wow, that's so impressive, because you survived that, and I respect you for surviving that. And that's a good response. That's a perfectly fine response. But it's a crazy mind to be like, I want that response so much, I will take the most minuscule little offense I've ever felt in my life, and that's why I have it just as bad as them. Look at me.
Well, that woman, see, that's the thing too. Like, people like me, I don't run around telling everybody that I have PTSD. This is the first time I've shared that on such a large. My friends know that about me. But if your average stranger sees me in a tank top and asks me what happened to me, I say I cut myself shaving. Or like something equally as ludicrous. You know, because it's not their fucking business. It's not your business what happened to me, you know? And people like her are like, give me attention. Give me attention. Whereas people that really suffer from PTSD and people who have had really traumatic things happen, we don't want attention. I don't want people to, oh, tell me about how you got stabbed again. Tell me, you know, tell me the story. Like, no, I've had a boy. I tried to date a boy once after this happened. And I use the word boy, even though he was over the age of 21, because he was very, very much a boy. Who really, like you said, kind of fetishized what happened to me, like wanted to hear about it all the time, and like, you know, kind of tell his friends, like, here, this is my girlfriend, I was telling you, she got stabbed, remember? You know, and she
That's fucked up.
So his homies would be like, she's so hardcore, bro. It's like, no, dude, nobody wants that. Nobody wants, you know, I'm not all on Twitter, like, well, now I am. Like, I got into a fight with a girl just a couple weeks ago because she was saying they had all these instances of harassment that were like dudes calling her, you know, a cunt on the internet, and she's like, this is harassment, it needs to stop. I'm like, I was stalked for 4 months with 10-page letters, right? I was stalked with Bible verses about rape and murder. Please tell me how somebody calling you a cunt is harassment.
Yeah,
please.
absolutely.
Like, I'd love to hear it, you know?
These people need to grow the fuck up, seriously. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I was so happy that, you know, we made the connection and we could talk about it, is because, you know, when you start talking about these issues, it requires it requires, you know, an extreme example to shine a light on just how preposterous some of this kind of thing is. You know, you went through and endured a harrowing, fucked up experience. You know, and like you were saying, you know, being stalked, sent these fucked up Bible verses, dude, like literally like opening his fucking arm up in front of you, like that's harassment. You know. A cartoon bear calling you a cunt is not harassment, you know.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like what bearing does is not harassment. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Like it's not.
It's so fucking great. And then you know, like and the PTSD, I mean, there's plenty of space for people to have a wider conversation about, you know, the issues that they want to talk about, but co-opting the craziest or worst or most extreme or most savage phrases and words and explanations and syndromes is the most dishonest, fucked up thing I could ever fucking think of.
Right? Some drunk boy grabbed your ass at a party. Tell me how you need a trigger warning for sexual assault now. You know, and that's what it is. It's like I see all these women and it's not even their fault. Like these younger girls, like, yeah, these girls in their 30s and 40s, like, fuck you, it's your fault. You know what you're doing. But the girls that they're teaching and that they're raising to believe that, yeah, you got your tit groped at a concert, you were sexually assaulted, or you were assaulted. It's like, no, I've been assaulted. Like somebody tried to take my life. Like, I don't need trigger warnings. Like, I watch, like, horror movies. I watch fucking, like, slasher films.
Yeah.
I don't need a trigger warning. Like, tell me how you do. And I'm not saying that we get into this trap where we hold people to the same standards that we hold ourselves, where we expect somebody to be as strong as we are or to be as moral as we are or whatever have you. But at the same time, there is a threshold for that. There is a threshold where you are being weak. It's not just me holding you to my standard. It is you being demonstrably weak-willed and weak-minded. You know?
I think it's official. Nicole, you were probably one of the coolest fucking people I've ever met online.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. I don't, you know, I wish I could say I tried. But you know, I just try to be myself. I try to be who I am. You know, when I first met my fiance, it's kind of a funny story. I have a really hard time with like stupidity and weak people, as you can tell. And so I kind of get into this trap where if it happens in front of me, I'm the first person to call it out and to say, hey, no, like you're being dumb and this is why you're being dumb. And he had to tell me, like, look, when it's a severe thing, like that's cool, like tear them down, no problem. But for you to kind of attack everybody that's just kind of stupid, it's you got to calm down on that. And it kind of made me realize what I was doing, you know? So I'm not the nicest person in the world. And I think that that's kind of a lasting effect of what happened as well. Is it definitely, I was always not very nice. Like I'm charitable and I'm kind, of course, and I'm generous, but I'm not nice. And I think there's a huge difference. I don't sugarcoat to save somebody's feelings. I never will. I'm the last person to do that.
Yeah.
But after getting stabbed, that's kind of almost tenfold. Like I will never ever say something just to save somebody's feelings.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
No, you don't. Why would you be fake? You know, why would you be fake?
I agree. You know, like I try and be charitable too. I try and be open-minded and forgiving. I try and be forgiving. But nice, not really necessarily nice. Even, you know, sometimes the meanest thing that you can do is to kill somebody with kindness, just so they feel like a piece of shit. That's not actually me being nice. That's just me being bam.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that approach. You know, I love that approach where they automatically kind of assume who you are and what you're going to get, and you just give them the exact opposite of that. You kill them with kindness, and they're just like, oh, I feel like a piece of shit now.
I know you do. But yeah, you know, but it's a lot of the times, it's exactly what you were saying. You know, it's not necessarily always these people's fault. somebody told them this is a good fucking idea. There's like these huge forces and pressures and whatever, what have you, that basically instill these young people into thinking like these are the proper ways to behave. These are the proper ways to go about it. And it's hard sometimes not to have a lot of compassion for them. So I have to like find ways to be compassionate while kicking them in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like the thing is like, kind of since this happened to me, all I've ever wanted is to like help at least one person. Like there were red flags. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody that is willing to sock their brother in the face and knock them out just for telling you to shut up, that is not okay. Like, I'm sorry. Like you might think it's cute. No, he was defending me and shit. Hold on one second. I had to move to where there's like no sunlight in my face. All right, cool. Here, yeah, I think this is good. Okay, cool. This is good. So if that happens, like if you're with somebody that is willing to be violent towards other people, they're going to be violent towards you eventually. And so I kind of wanted to always like help somebody and tell somebody my story and say, hey, like if you see any of these signs, like if you see somebody like starting to act crazy, they're probably going to get crazy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that doesn't mean like turn them away. Get them help, but not just through you. Call the cops, call the hospital, call their parents if you have to. Just say, hey, this is not okay. But don't be cruel about it, because if I could go back, that would be one thing that I think I would do differently. Is towards the end, when I just couldn't take it anymore, I did get a little bit mean. I was just like, look, this is every fucking day. I just can't do this anymore. Shut up and leave me alone.
Right. Yeah.
So, your first instinct is to get mean, but don't do that,
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's I don't know. I'm very thankful, and it's wonderful that you shared the story with us. Do you feel like there's any spaces that we need to fill?
No, not really. My fiance wanted to say something before we're done. I don't know what it is, but
Sure, absolutely.
here.
Oh, let's see.
We're sitting on the ground on our porch.
Right on.
I think it's the whole point of the video and this entire interview, but just to cap it, like, I think a good analogy is if every girl that told me they've been raped actually were raped, I mean, that 1 in 5 stat would be true. And that's such a travesty that people who claim they're harassed, claim they've suffered PTSD, things like that, it just makes people like my fiance fall in line with all of that and just kind of dismiss it. And that's just awful.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this it's unfortunate too, because like when the social justice crowd starts to conflate, real instances of abuse, real instances of like sexual assault, we get into like listen and believe territory.
Right.
What it really does is it does two things. It always does two things. Number one, it delegitimizes the actual instances of these things happening.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it clouds the conversation and fucks the statistics so that you can't even have a conversation about it honestly.
Right.
And sometimes sometimes it takes brave people like Nicole to come forward and be like, your shit is bullshit. This is some real shit. So go fuck your shit.
I mean, and it like there are times when he has to tell me like it calm down. Because it makes me incredibly angry to feel like these people, they are co-opting the conversation. They're taking their bullshit statistics and making people like me count in those, and I don't.
Yeah.
I don't fall in that line. I am not a victim. I don't lay in my bed and cry every day about what happened to me. It doesn't paralyze me. It doesn't cripple me from the outside world. I don't feel like I need to be, shut out from Twitter because of the harassment. I don't feel like there needs to be legislation on that.
Yeah, let alone all of that happening from being catcalled.
Oh my God, I know.
I think that's kind of what pisses us off the most is that, it's just turned into it's so common now. It's so common. Whereas before, you know, social media was huge and before the internet was huge, there had to be like due process. You know, even with what I went through, when it was very clear who did this to me, I still had to give interviews to the police. I still had to like get my story verified and things like that.
Absolutely.
You know, even when it's so clear it wasn't listen and believe. But now it's like you're a sexist if you don't believe a woman who says what happened to her, you know, happened.
It's the
And
digital court of public opinion.
it is, absolutely.
Right.
And even when these people, like, even when these poor boys, right, you see these cases of these poor boys that get charged with rape and they get completely exonerated in a court of law, it doesn't matter anymore. Their lives are ruined.
Yeah,
Absolutely ruined.
Well, I have somebody at the door. What the?
Yeah.
Nobody ever rings my doorbell. That's
Yeah,
bizarre.
that's either.
You guys hang on for just 1 second.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really sorry. This has never happened.
No, you're fine. We gotta move somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
It is so bright outside. Yeah, we'll go inside. Yeah, yeah. We're going in my house, chat people.
Yeah, I'm interested in the price. What time you guys gonna be here tomorrow? We've got appointments for 8 to 12 and 12 to 5.
Anytime 8 to 12 would be perfect.
Right. What time? Let me ask you. You have the bundle of
I'm in the
TV.
middle of a live stream, actually.
Dude, I'll come back.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Have a good one. I don't know if you guys could hear that.
No.
I'm really sorry. So I guess like there's like some fucked up thing about our internet lines, and this guy he wanted to talk about having a schedule to come in and like do maintenance on the node and shit like that tomorrow. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
bro, I'm live streaming right now. And he's like, I'll come back.
Nice. Yeah, we had to move inside anyways. It's getting way too bright on our back porch, so.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's like the second time in like 8 months anybody's ever rung my doorbell. Like,
Oh, wow.
you know. So anyway, that fucked it all up. Oh man. But
No,
I'm so thankful that you guys hung out. Thank you, Nicole, so much for
No,
sharing
thank
your
you.
story. I really appreciate
thank
it.
you for having me. I appreciate it a lot.
It's fantastic. I guess is this a good place to call it quits for now?
Yeah, this is great. It's good.
Absolutely.
We got it all out there.
You know, maybe at some point here in the future, you guys can like hop on again with me and we'll like dissect something together.
Oh, that would be so cool.
A blast.
Yeah,
cool.
That.
Right
For
on.
sure.
I look forward to it. All right. So good night to the chat. I'll put your Twitter in the description box. And yeah, awesome. Thank you again
Thanks
so
for
much.
having us, and thanks for everybody sticking it out.
Thanks, Jeff.
Right on. Good night,
Have a good
guys.